Raj was next, and over here.
I'd like to request you to frame the current discourse on petroleum gas prices using the theory of reflexivity, just to help us understand how this theory will garnish different insights or maybe counterintuitive insights and really value-added is in terms of if we frame this entire discourse using the theory of reflexivity, because we can bring in things like I'm assuming speculations, sustainability, shortages, the reality of gas prices and perception shortages, etc.
I'm not actually didn't fully hear the question, but let me try to answer it as I understood it. But go ahead, maybe.
It's not a question. I'm saying if you could help us frame the present emerging discourse on gas prices using the theory of reflexivity. Basically, what would you choose to include? What would you choose to exclude? Is it an individual level theory? Who is it useful for policymakers?
You mean predicting the price of energy, or price of gas, or oil?
Maybe predicting, or whatever you choose to use it for. I'd like to see how you use that theory to choose what's important, what's not. What are the aspects which can be...
Well, yeah, I did that actually in my first book, The Alchemy of Finance, where I actually conducted a real-time experiment, making sort of a diary of my decision-making process, and then looking at it, from time to time when I was making a change in the portfolio, and I recorded it. And it was very useful. So that is an example. Now, when it comes to the price of oil, well, normally I don't actually have a position in oil because I don't know. I don't have a sufficient insight into all the various factors that are at play for me to take a position. Actually, and actually, I don't really manage the portfolio anymore. But I still sort of advise my children who are doing it. And we do have a little bit of a long position in oil mainly because of the political situation, which actually in the latest version of the book, the final version, I deal with more extensively than in the version that you had, which is the global energy crisis. You really, have a political situation where you don't have excess supplies of oil. The excess capacity, which used to be, 12 million barrels a day, is down to less than 2 million barrels a day. So you have no excess capacity. And you have tensions where the suppliers want to exploit the shortage. And so you have an incentive to interrupt the supplies, various kinds of incentives. You have pirates in the delta, the Niger Delta, that are disrupting production. You have Chavez who's making noises, and most of all, you've got the Iran crisis, where Iran is threatening to develop nuclear weapons, and we are threatening to take some measures against it. And that is creating pressures to build up larger inventories than you normally have. The Chinese feel very insecure because they don't have a strategic reserve. And so you have excess demand, and you have then, on top of that, people hedge fund managers who recognize the trend and jump on board, and they also add to the demand. So that is it's really, I would say, at least a third of the current price is due to the political tensions in the world, and those tensions are kind of still building. Therefore, it makes some sense to be long oil. Now, how far should it go? I'm inclined to reduce the position a little bit, just to be a little bit on the safe side, because there's so much uncertainty. So that's the story.
Thank you.
I was noticing how you developed the notion of reflexivity by a combination of cognitive and participational. And that suggested to me that it might be possible in the contemporary circumstance to move ahead with the reflexivity theory and apply it to not only the economic but the political and the social reality. Because later on, you also mentioned that values are the directives of the action. So that would suggest that the participation is related to the values. And the values, of course, have a long history and tradition, something which is experimented and learned and committed to by a people through the ages. So your suggestion that perhaps we need a new epistemology that will bring together not only the cognitive, which is abstracted from action, but engage the action, and that we need a developed anthropology to understand how will and values and cognition are in fact united in one human person. I think that might take the notion of reflexivity from being more reflection, one hitting the other and bouncing back to the other, into a real unity in depth of those, so that our knowledge is shaped by our values, and that's recognized. And at the same time, our values then can proceed to shape our action. To be concrete, it seems that in the West, we move very much in terms of rights. One could say that Islam is most devoted to justice. These are two basic values which shape the way in which we know and interpret and react. So going more deeply into the epistemology and the anthropology to understand how those meet and then be able to engage with the values of the others would be, I think, a way of carrying your work into a very contemporary mode.
Well, you obviously understand the idea, and I think your suggestion is a very good one, and I hope that it will actually happen. People will start using it more, and now it's interesting that in sociology and anthropology, the idea of reflexivity came up sooner than I brought it up in the field of economics and finance.